Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour. I'm your host, Matthew Hawkins. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host and friend, Ed Carbajal. Ed, it's warming up here on the West Coast. How's life on the East Coast?
It's funny, always odd here in New Jersey. Not as odd as it is in California right now with all the ICE anti-protest. I know you're not close to that, but yeah, no, it's better than it normal. I usually complain when you ask me that, but we're in that time of year where I'm kind of like not. I have no complaints.
I'm not obviously I'm not real close to that. I'm going up to LA in a couple weeks though, so hopefully that clears out. If Ant Walker's listening for a Too Short DJ Quick concert, so because because that wasn't the kind of music I listened to. But anyways, not just anyway. Shout out to Ant Walker, good dude from Sherdog team over there, and them and their
MMA on
podcast.
point and
There you
everything
go.
else, yeah.
Everything else. Well, let's just jump right to it. UFC 316 was this past weekend. I know there's one subject that we really don't want to get too deep into. I'm pretty disgusted by it, and I don't even really know where to go with debuting fighters going forward. I mean, I feel like I should just bet the house against Aaron Pico at this point.
Yeah, well, I do want to say, because I really like Patchy Mix. I mean, following his career, talking to him when he first got to Bellator and all the events that he fought on that I covered in-house back when the good old Bellator was still around. I want to see him succeed, and I think he still can succeed. What I'll say, because he said he sees all the stuff that people are saying, and he put a comment like, he's right. Not a lot of the people that are criticizing him can't even, I'll take a quote from Israel Adesanya. They can't even sniff their athletic supporter with their armchair, athletic comments or whatever. But I will say the only thing what I think happened in that fight, just the way I was reading the body language and stuff, and fight week, and because he was very confident going in, super confident. And I think he had the version of an adrenaline dump when it finally, when his time to shine finally came. And, sometimes overconfidence can make you shut down the way kind of he did. It looked like he was expecting some takedowns or something to initiate so he could sink in some whatever move he was working on or whatever. It's not the Patchy Mix that we've seen fight everywhere else. I still think he's one of the best fighters in the weight class. I know that showing was not his best, but even Dana White was asked about it in the post-event press conference, and he said the same thing. Not everybody shines when they first get in there, regardless of wherever they came from, what they've accomplished. Very few people do. I mean, even RDR, yes, he won his first fight, but it wasn't a great outing, his very first fight.
No.
We really didn't see him until the second, third fight.
The Holland fight. You're right. Yeah. You're right about that. But listen, I'm not gonna talk bad about Patchy Mix. Same thing with you. Fan of his. Mm-hmm. But I will say this: he is behind the 8 ball. He's got this next fight is same with Pitbull. These guys, because there might not be a lot of these guys are probably getting paid decent. Like I don't think these guys are 10,000 fighters. I don't know if the base scales ever get released anymore. These guys are making healthy amounts of money, and Zuffa's already, or Endeavor, TKO, whoever the hell we're dealing with, has already proven that they're not necessarily in the business of just paying people a lot, right? Like if you're not doing it, so now it's time to put up or shut up in his next fight. You can't have another snoozer. If you do that, then you lose it all, the momentum, everything. Here's another thing. Let's give credit to Mario Batista. 8-fight win streak, underrated by me. Admittedly, I'm going to straight up say it. I was wrong about that. So, dude definitely deserves his spot where he's at. Proven himself now multiple times. And at least of all proven it to me at this point, but he's proven it to the people that he needs to prove it to. So I think he probably moves into main event status for fight night cards here or Apex cards, and then from that point you're not far from a title shot for him. And at this point he's really like 1-2 good fights away from earning that. So mad props to him. Disappointed in the mixed fight, but we've been here before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
I think the next one it's weird because when you think about guys that like when you think about Eddie Alvarez when he first came to the UFC, he shined, like his light shined pretty good. Even Michael Chandler, he had that fight with Dan Hooker, was his first fight, and he won it. And not for nothing, even in losing, he impresses us. Even I guess because he's doing like the worst version of Justin Gaethje in his fights. But the damage is just being worn more by him. But yeah, man, Patchy Mix is young, so give him.
I'm never, this is the UFC. Obviously, when we're talking about Patchy Mix going in, we're talking about him getting a big fight against a name guy, and it's really a catch-22 because in the past, in the distant past, when big guys came over to the UFC, a guy like Crow Cop, a guy like a guy like Rampage, they gave him the Marvin Eastman, they gave him the Eddie Sanchez, and while they won those fights, a lot of people back then clamored like, why is he fighting Eddie Sanchez and not Randy Couture? Why is he not fighting Chuck Liddell immediately? And why is he fighting Marvin Eastman? There is something to be said about that kind of tune-up fight, and we don't see that anymore. And a lot of people wouldn't accept that in today's MMA world. And I'd probably be the first one complaining, so I'm kind of being a bit hypocritical here. But I also can see now maybe what their vision was back then, as far as it also helps to get that highlight reel. KO. It worked in the Rampage situation. He knocked out Marvin Eastman and he had his highlight. He went on to fight Liddell. Unfortunately for Crow Cop, he kind of had a lackluster fight with Eddie Sanchez. Now, Eddie Sanchez was a tough SOB from my neck of the woods out here. But it didn't look great. He didn't look outstanding. And then they went on, and it was Gonzaga and it was Congo, and that big fight with Crow Cop really never happened.
Yeah.
So I wonder if I would like to see them not push him at this point. Let's just give him an unranked guy. I don't even care if it's a guy of the Contender Series. Let him go out there and get a first round finish on somebody.
That's actually kind of what you're saying is kind of answering Antoine's question here. Who do you think is the proper bounce back fight for Patchy? I'm looking at the rankings right now as you're saying what you're saying. And maybe somebody not in the top 10. Bautista actually jumped up one. Today is Tuesday.
It was like 15.
Or yesterday's Tuesday, rather. So the rankings change, and here Bautista was 10 before on last Saturday. He jumped up one to. So you said who's at 15? Vinicius Oliveira is at 15.
How about Henry Cejudo?
He's actually 10. So that's actually one I was going to say. Would you think him and Cejudo's a name that if he does win, it could put him right back into.
I think Cejudo's more on the downcline, which obviously could be finished off by Mix. You know what I mean? If that you could almost end if that happened. That rings. You could sell that fight easier than the Vinicius fight, or Vinicius Oliveira fight. Obviously that one would probably be a prelim, or on a mid card on a fight night,
or featured like prelim.
Yeah. So
this Cejudo, like he's a name there. He's got seniority. I don't think they would drop Cejudo that low. Although, from the cards we've seen lately, who knows?
The Cejudo fight. Without looking down the whole list, or just give him a guy without looking at the list, it'd be hard to say. But Cejudo, as far as the big name, kind of jumps into my head at 135. But I'd be fine with even a guy that I've never really heard of, just to get the ball rolling. I think there's something to be said about getting some momentum.
Yeah, no, that's what Antoine's asking next. If you still think Patchy gets a ranked opponent, and that's kind of what Matt's saying. I don't know. I like the Cejudo fight. Maybe. The UFC is very hard on people that debut the way Patchy did. So I would imagine they're going to give him an unranked guy, and then
Like, who are we at with 13 and 14? Who's like 10 to 15? You said Cejudo was 10, and you said Oliveira was 15. Like, what are some of the names we're dealing with?
So between number 11 is Ayman Zahabi, 12 is Kyler Phillips, Marcus McGee is 13, Montel Jackson 14, and then Oliveira is 15.
I mean, I'd be fine with honestly any of those. They're kind of, I mean, I guess in hindsight, they're all kind of Mario Batistas before Patchy Mix fought him. But if you want to do that, otherwise, we don't need to give. I don't think you give him a. I don't want to see him fight Sean O'Malley. I don't want to see him fight. One of those guys that's just.
And I saw people were trying to like hint at that, which I feel like is would be a good fight. But I
mean, I watch it. Don't get me wrong. I'd pay to go to it.
It's a fun one.
But yeah. I don't. But I also think that that's a career ender for almost either one of them. You know what I mean? It would be 3 losses in a row for O'Malley, and or it's 2 in a row for Patchy Mix. I just think the UFC needs to be careful right now. We've talked about it in the past with their stars and stuff. We got to develop something at this point. Maybe some strategies got to change. Maybe we need a couple squash fights, but we got to do something to establish some stars because I think that it's fading. I do, and I think it's important. I mean, this weekend you got Buckley Usman, great fight, but same kind of thing. Usman obviously is a legend who you want him to kind of stay around because he's a name and he's fun to watch. Buckley's also fun to watch and he's on the up and coming, but if he gets derailed, then so it's really an interesting time with that stuff. But I don't know. What were you going to say about the? I don't know. I think.
Do you think that the 3 weeks notice might have had something to do with it? I mean, he didn't he didn't say it was an issue at all. But I know a lot of people that coming to his defense mentioned that about the 3 weeks notice, and I mean,
I'm sure it has play in it. I'm sure it does. Just the mental, not getting over it mentally. Maybe the excitement, maybe the whole rush of it never quite clears your mind that quick. I'm not speaking from experience, so this is just speculation. I also, and I didn't, I'm not. This is not to bash Mix. I think maybe some of that pre-fight confidence could have been slightly trying to self-motivate. And not that he's not super confident in himself, but just vocally saying it and having to repeat it over and over for the amount of interviews he had to say. I just wonder if it was just more of kind of self-hype himself up. Maybe perhaps knowing that 3 weeks was pushing it. Maybe perhaps knowing that, I mean, we don't know. He might have had some nicked up injuries. He couldn't turn down the fight, right? We're pretty much in a situation where he had to take the fight. So even if we came out that he had a torn meniscus or he had a damaged knee or something, we would never know. He might have a broken back for all we know. I mean, you never know what these fighters are going through that are taking this fight that could slow him down. It wasn't the Patchy Mix we were used to seeing. So either it was just a totally off night, which is odds are what it was, or there's something else behind the scenes he had an injury, something nagging him that slowed him down, and he's just man enough not to use that as an excuse over and over again when he signed to take the fight on 3 weeks notice. I mean, it is what it is. Like you said, he's going to bounce back. Hopefully he does something spectacular. Hopefully we get that highlight. Hopefully we get that moment that we kind of been looking for.
Hopefully Aaron Pico breaks this Bellator curse or whatever you want to call it. I'm still rooting for him whenever we do the picks for whatever card he's on. I'm still gonna call him to win. I
mean, it depends who he's fighting. I'm not gonna sit here and say I'm automatically picking him to win, but but I'm with you. I'll be rooting for him. I want these guys to do well. I rooted for Mix up until the last bell of that that fight. So it's one of those things.
It was rough. It was rough to watch. It was definitely rough to watch. Almost as rough to watch as the co-main event with Juliana Pena and Kayla Harrison. I mean, when I say rough to watch is because it was so goddamn late here by the time that fight came around, and knowing how it was going to go as soon as the first takedown happened, I was nodding like I was doing this just to stay up just to watch it, and then I think I fell asleep for a little bit because I closed my eyes and I woke up and then Kayla went like this, and I was just like, oh, she submitted her somehow, and then I saw the replay and I was like, oh, Kimura. I was like, I knew it was going to be some sort of arm lock.
Yeah, it's what we both kind of thought was was one of the definite possibilities. Basically, a mauling followed by a submission or elbows, and it turned out it was the submission. It's good for the division. It appears that Amanda Nunes is coming back. That seems to be almost a certainty at this point, which is good for the UFC right now. Is good for the division. Sounds like a good main event for Madison Square Garden in November.
Yeah. Did you see? I wrote a piece on one of her. They asked her on ESPN when she would like to come back, and she did say November, December. So it's either Madison Square Garden or some big T-Mobile arena out in Vegas, final card of the year type of situation.
It's that seems to me like, I mean, listen, the big news that happened in MMA or in boxing a handful of years ago was when Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor headlined Madison Square Garden, right? The UFC hasn't done that with a female fight yet at Madison Square Garden. There hasn't been a headliner. I don't even think there's been Joanna and Rose was the co-main event, I believe. No, I don't know if it was Garbrandt and Dillashaw or Rose at 217 there. But bottom line is they've never had a headliner female fight. If you were ever going to do it, I mean, this is essentially potentially the biggest women's fight
and Kayla's
in a long time.
Kayla's main evented or been on like main cards in New York, which she did her stuff for the PFL. She's fought in the Garden in the theater, so it'd be nice to get her in the arena. She's definitely a name. She can definitely get people to fill some seats. So as Ken Nunes' fight is definitely the way they're selling it. If I'm honest, I'm not too excited about it, to be honest with you. Just because it just feels like. So if you read my article about Nunes' comments about when she'd like to come back, I know Damian Martin had posted about, and Dana White was asked at the post-event presser. Damian Martin commented on it too. She's not in the USADA testing pool, and you have to be in for at least 6 months before they let you compete. Not USADA, the VADA, whatever they use now.
But it's run by the UFC now. They can make
exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So that was the point of my article. I was like, yes, it's 6 months or whatever with the testing, but Amanda Nunes didn't show up in Newark, New Jersey just because she was on the road and happened to be passing by and wanted to see some fights. Like, don't forget who owns the UFC now. It's the same people that own the WWE. She's sitting there. Kayla won. They had them face off in the ring. Like, this fight's going to happen if they wanted to. So it's more likely to happen in Vegas in December than November, because New York's a little, I don't want to say strict, but they'll definitely check their P's and Q's when it comes to stuff like that. And the UFC probably can't get away with the stuff that they can get away with in Vegas.
Yeah, but that's insinuating something, and Kayla Harrison also would fall heavily into that category as well. So if we want to go down that route, but then I mean, to me, I make that fight for Madison Square Garden just to shut everybody up. Unless you want to hear about John Jones never fighting for the next 6 months, like that's the other option, because I would just get it out of the way right now. Chalk that in for the main event. That way, John Jones doesn't even have the option of fighting in New York. If John Jones wants to fight, he can just fight in Vegas under their watch. And
unless that to me is such a dead conversation. But
I agree, but that's all the conversation's going to be until they strip his ass and do the right thing.
If they can get him, then I definitely see whatever card the Harrison Nunes is on. Especially like either for the Garden or end of the year, whatever, they could do them.
I don't know if you stack that. I guess you do, maybe, but to me, if you're the UFC, that Kyla Harris and that to me, that's like it's a standalone fight. I don't think you take. If you believe Amanda Nunes is the GOAT, and you believe that Kyla Harrison is the next big thing, then I don't think you shadow that fight with something else.
But while I do agree with you, I think Nunes Harrison is a standalone. It should be the headliner for whenever they book it. You got to remember they're still in negotiation for a broadcast rights deal, and whoever they jump into bed with, they're going to want to come in hot. And if they come in hot, that'd be a hot main and co-main to come in under if they want to get people to sign up for Netflix or wherever they wind up for their pay-per-views.
You're right. You're right, but we'll see. I mean, that
Yeah.
under that scenario, you're right, but we'll see. It's definitely going to happen. It seems like it's on the landscape right now, so that should be
I mean,
fun.
it really. Speaking of that, I mean, just I know we didn't mean to talk about it, but I just want to mention it briefly with the announcement yesterday with the UFC. Dana is officially promoting the Canelo Crawford for Turkey for the boxing match for September 13th. The press release came out from the UFC's PR people, and even Turkey put on social media that Dana is the promoter for the event. And the event's going to be on Netflix. So you got WWE on Netflix, you got this on Netflix. I mean, you're really not hiding it well that some form of the UFC is going to be on Netflix by the end of the year or beginning of 2026. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that's another big Netflix sporting event.
It's true. We got talking about the main event. Dashvili looked spectacular, best he's ever looked.
How about him trying to talk about anybody could do? He's like, I just got to work hard and whatever he said at the end of that fight. I'm like, no, dude, no, I don't think so. I agree with Joe Rogan. He needs to be put in a lab and examine
what's going on. But he's just getting better and better. He starts finishing people, then he's going to go down as the best to ever do it at that weight class a few fights from now. So I mean, there's really nothing.
As long as he doesn't kill himself,
he looked outstanding.
Jumping off the mountains or whatever he does.
Yeah. O'Malley didn't look great. Admits that he was a little bit not scared, but gun shy a little bit going into the fight. He thought like Merab was just better than he was the first fight, and he was definitely having some issues. But
well, he started doing what I kind of called that he started throwing those body kicks. Because based on the rematch, it looked like because he's a very cerebral fighter, O'Malley, and it looked like he tried to go to that. Well, as we talked about last week, and Merab just wasn't having it this time. I mean, apparently Merab learned from feeling that whatever he felt the first time, he was ready for it this time. And once he started getting the takedowns, it was just, I mean, if you've ever even practiced like get takedowns and taking and receiving technique that are throws and takedowns in a martial arts class, that can be super exhausting. Being taken down and getting back, even when they let you up, which it looked like Merab was doing, letting him get up a little bit just so he can take him down again to physically exhaust him. I mean, it's almost hurts to watch fights like that, especially if you know what it feels like, that exhaustion. I mean, I don't blame him for tapping. Somebody said that he was going for that choke earlier in the fight too. I forget who. I think it was the Pro Grappling, one of the grappling newsletter guys that analyzes these things posted it. But I was just like, man, I mean, even if the choke would look tight, but even if it wasn't in, I mean, when you're exhausted and somebody just starts squeezing you, probably tap from exhaustion just because.
No, it's true. Yeah, it looked like he tried to do it the first round, was able to finish it in the third. So, I mean, there's really, it's hard to even, you can only say so many great things, but everything he's doing is amazing. And like I said, if he starts finishing people, then that boring label can get thrown away by anybody who finds him boring.
Which is crazy to me that anyone ever.
Which is crazy, but repetitively over and over again, I can see it. I mean, when you first see it, you're shocked. If you're watching it for 20 rounds in a row, you might be, but once you understand what the level of his cardio and stuff, it's something we've just never seen before. And I mean, that's really his superpower, right? Like, a lot of these guys have superpowers where there's one thing that they're just so good at that you just it just blows your mind. And for him, it's cardio. And we've seen guys that are great cardio, but we've never seen anybody. We've seen a lot of stand-up. We saw the Diaz's. We've seen Nick and Nate who could stand there and throw 2,000 punches and keep coming at somebody. But we've never really seen it in a wrestler who is just nonstop for 25 minutes. So, mad props to him, man. I curious to see. He looks like Corey Sandhagen, perhaps, which would be a cool fight. And that division is pretty much, there's a lot of good fights at that division. So it's
funny because I used to always, back when Bellator was around, I used to think their 135 division was the dangerous Shark Tank or whatever in all of MMA. But since a lot of those guys are coming to the UFC now, it's definitely in the UFC. I mean, lightweight 155 is still what it has a reputation too, but 135 has gotten so much more interesting in the last 6 months or so. There's definitely some fighters to watch. Marab is definitely one of them.
Speaking of submissions, why don't you give us the download on what we got with UFC BJJ?
Yeah, which was interesting because I'm surprised that they went with the rule set that they're going with. So I don't know what kind of judges you're. I mean, so does that mean these are sanctioned by the athletic commission too? That's one thing that's not very clear. Maybe it'll come out, but so they're going to use a 10. So UFC BJJ, it's they're starting the road to the title. You can watch it on all the episodes. It's going to be like an Ultimate Fighter type of situation. Mikey Musumeci's one coach, and Jesus, I forgot the other dude's name. is the other coach, but they're fighting for the 135 title on International Fight Week on the 25th, and whoever wins this road to the title show for their respective weight classes, which is welterweight and lightweight, those will be the crown champions for that for UFC BJJ 1. Whoever makes it to the end of the tournament. So you can follow along on YouTube starting on the 16th. It'll be on the UFC's YouTube channel, and then the actual event will be on UFC Fight Pass. 3 5-minute rounds with a 10-point must system. I don't know how well a 10-point must system will translate to jiu-jitsu. And if you haven't seen any of the social media of what they'll be competing in, Claudia Gadella in the press release described it as an octagon with walls, but when you see it, it's more like an octagonal pit. So like think the Karate Combat pit, kind of like the way Craig Jones took it and used it, but rather than it being square, it's an octagon, and you can the walls are the guys are sliding down them and stuff like that, which I think is good for grappling. I feel like the pit is definitely or sunken in is better than a raised platform, and the action can continue. Whereas you can't pin a guy against the cage. The cage will mess up your jiu-jitsu because you can't do certain rotations. You'll kind of get stuck, and the ref would probably have to separate you. I don't know how a third man's going to work in a pit. Probably the same way it works in Karate Combat, but it's not as it's how Karate Combat's like a very rigid pit. This slide, like the guys were literally sliding into it. If you look at the video that's out there of the UFC, what are they calling it? I think they're calling it the pit or the submission bowl or something like that. They have a nickname for it already, or fish bowl, something like that. But I mean, I'm anxious to watch it. I want to see it. Although, again, I don't think a 10-point must system, 3 5-minute rounds, and then obviously if you get submitted, you win. But how do you do a decision for a 10-point must? I mean, is it going to be 10-9 if the guy's on the bottom all the time? Because jiu-jitsu, there's a lot of stuff you can do from the bottom. And then who's going to be judging? If it's going to be commission judges, how versed are they in submissions that for them to be calling scores? You know what I mean? There's a lot of questions.
I'm obviously not 100% sure, but I don't think it necessarily is commission involved. I'm thinking about all the BJJ, the EBIs and stuff I came to out here, and I don't think the commission was really involved. I mean, especially considering
grappling. Yeah.
I mean, and then I mean, I watched Gordon Ryan multiple times, and we kind of know that Gordon Ryan probably would have made most of the testing tubes explode if they were involved in that. So I don't know that. To me, it has to be black belt expert jiu-jitsu refs or judges. I'm sorry. And my only concern about the 10-9 is not necessarily figuring out how to judge it, because most of the time when you watch something, if you understand it, you can determine who's winning. Especially in jiu-jitsu, you're expert out. You're going to look at it and go, the grips, everything he's got, he's forcing that guy's pressure, that kind of stuff. So if you're expert on it, you should be able to kind of pick up on that stuff. My concern would be a guy who clearly wins rounds 1 and 2 in a jiu-jitsu match, basically just not doing anything for the third round, squeezing guard, holding, and just ride it out. Maybe not all 5 minutes, but you know what I mean? Like that would be my concern in a sense, because a guy can't go crazy and just start elbowing a guy in the head.
Yeah.
You have to work moves, and unless, especially at this level, you're not just doing a snap 15, submission on most of these guys. Most of these take multiple, sometimes minutes, rounds to set up moves in order to be able to properly execute it. So I'm wondering how that'll play into that. I think 1 15-minute round to me would be the way to do it. Or even 1 10-minute round. It'll be interesting to see, but I kind of understand why they're trying to format it the way they are. And a lot of it's going to be testing run. These guys this is not their bag. I mean, I know Musumeci and is obviously it is, but as far as TKO, this is something new that they're reaching into new for Dana White. We can see that even the boxing, although we're getting announcements kind of by them now, they slowed down a little bit. Seemed like they were going to kind of jump into this like hellfire, and they kind of seemed like they backed off, slowed down, and said, "Okay, let's figure it out before we challenge Turkey." And you know what I mean? Like let's get on the right page here before we totally screw this up. I think there's gonna be changes to stuff. I think scoring. I think all that can change over time, but it's cool. Any of these things that allow for it. We've said it for years. Why isn't there UFC kickboxing? Why isn't there UFC Muay Thai?
Oh, they asked Dana White that at the post-fight presser, and his answer was kind of like I understood his answer because because they were like, you're doing UFC BJJ, you're doing Zuffa boxing. They're like, well, why not get into kickboxing? And he kind of was just like, he said he likes kickboxing, but he never got into it the way he got into MMA and
I would do, but the small glove. I wouldn't do traditional kickboxing in 2025 right now. I would do the Muay Thai
with the MMA gloves.
With MMA gloves, like one does. That to me, that's a winner. I've been to 2-1 events. Those, no matter who's fighting in those Muay Thai fights, the crowd is on pins and needles the whole fight. I agree. That's the fun. And then you open the door to bringing guys like Buqua and
take them all, Stamp and all them. Yeah, take them all.
You know what I mean? They can all come
especially because who knows if one's probably not going to be around this time next year with the way that they're doing things. So, Chaudhry going on Tim Ferriss's podcast talking shit. I mean, some of these guys.
Exactly.
But, yeah.
Anyways,
but his whole thing about kickboxing was. Like he likes it, but he doesn't love it. I mean, when he got into MMA, it's because him and the Fertitas were taking jiu-jitsu classes together. So that's where his love for the grappling comes from. And obviously, the history with MMA, that was his way to get into being a promoter because he didn't have any pull in boxing. Now he's got pull because he's in bed with Turkey and everything, and he is who he is now. But so his answer didn't surprise me. I thought it was a good answer. And honestly, I like having other sports elsewhere. I mean, the UFC doesn't have to.
Oh, I agree.
For everything.
I think there's a little to be said too for Dana White. The pool of good kickboxers in the United States is thin as hell, and so he would have to go into Europe, and then you're involved. Then you're battling Glory. You're starting. You know what I mean? Like it might not be your turf. So maybe that's another reason why they would kind of stay away from that. Speaking of Glory, this weekend is Glory 100. Rico Verhoeven headlines that against Vikovic, the light heavyweight champion. 2 8-man tournaments. BKFC's out at Mohegan Sun this Friday. Parker Porter versus Dylan Kleckler. It's really a loaded weekend. Sean Merriman's got his Lights Out promotion going in my neck of the woods, headlined by Curtis Millender. Ice Wars, BKFC on ice. That's happening. I mean, so there's a lot going on. You'll definitely want to check out grabakahitman.com, Kaposa's website with the schedule, because it is a packed weekend.
Yeah.
Although the UFC, it's loaded otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, the UFC's in Nashville, right?
No, UFC's in Atlanta. PFL's in Nashville on Thursday. That's another one. Good headliner of that one. Jason Jackson versus Thad Jane. So that's also happening. Some good fights on that card this Thursday. Logan Storley, Jesus Pinedo, to name a few. Jeremy Kennedy, Adam Borix, to name a few of the guys. So I think that kind of wraps us up. And I want to thank everybody for listening. Fans can follow the show at Combat Hour on Twitter, Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour on Instagram. Follow me, Matt Hawkins, at FightFanHawk on Twitter. MMA Hawk 21 on Instagram. Follow it at Carbazol on Twitter, Carbeerzol on Instagram, and Old Head Carb on Twitch. Antoine, enjoy the fights. I believe he's going to Atlanta, or he lives in Atlanta, so I think he's going to the fights. Enjoy your time at the fights, and look forward to hearing some comments about him perhaps next week.
Peace.